How did a news article make you realize you were the missing child? I was scrolling through my phone during lunch break when the headline grabbed me. 10 years later, family still searches for missing daughter. The photo beneath it made my sandwich fall from my hands. A little girl with dark curls and a crescent-shaped scar above her left eyebrow stared back at me. My exact face. My exact scar from falling off my bike when I was 7, or so my parents had always told me. The article described how 6-year-old Lily Martinez vanished from St. Catherine's Children's Hospital on March 15, 2014. She'd been recovering from appendix surgery when she disappeared from her room during a shift change. Security footage showed a woman in scrubs wheeling Lily toward the service elevator, but the cameras malfunctioned before capturing her face. I touched the scar above my eyebrow with trembling fingers. My parents, David and Carol Thompson, had told me I was adopted as a baby from overseas. They said my birth parents died in an accident and I had no other family. But here was a photo of me at 6 years old, long after I supposedly arrived as an infant. The article mentioned Lily's distinctive birthmark on her right shoulder, 3 small brown spots forming a triangle. I pulled up my sleeve in the empty break room, staring at the identical marks I'd carried my entire life. My adoptive mother always said it looked like a constellation, something that made me special. My hands shook as I called St. Catherine's Hospital. The receptionist transferred me to patient services, where a woman named Jennifer answered with professional warmth. I asked about visiting hours, claiming I needed to see a friend. She gave me the information, but when I mentioned the name Lily Martinez, her voice changed completely. "I'm sorry, what did you say your name was?" Jennifer asked, suddenly alert. I hung up immediately, my heart hammering against my ribs. Something in her tone suggested recognition, like my voice matched something she'd been expecting to hear for years. I grabbed my keys and left work early. The drive to St. Catherine's took 40 minutes through afternoon traffic, giving me too much time to think. Every memory of my childhood felt suspect now. The way my parents never talked about my early years, how we moved frequently when I was young, why I had no baby photos or documentation from before age 8. St. Catherine's was a sprawling complex of brick buildings connected by covered walkways. I parked near the main entrance and walked through sliding glass doors into a lobby that smelled like disinfectant and artificial flowers. The information desk was staffed by an elderly volunteer who smiled pleasantly when I asked for directions to the pediatric ward. "3rd floor, take the elevators past the gift shop," she said, then paused. "Are you visiting someone specific, dear?" Something in her expression shifted as she studied my face. The same recognition I'd heard in Jennifer's voice over the phone. I mumbled something about a friend and hurried toward the elevators. The pediatric ward was decorated with colorful murals and cartoon characters, but the cheerful facade couldn't mask the institutional feeling that made my skin crawl. Nurses in scrubs moved purposefully between rooms, their soft-soled shoes squeaking against polished floors. Room 314 was marked with a small plaque reading, "Pediatric Recovery." I stood outside the closed door, remembering fragments that felt like dreams. Being wheeled down a long hallway, bright lights overhead. Someone in blue scrubs saying, "It's time to go home, sweetheart." But home had been somewhere else entirely. "Excuse me, can I help you?" A nurse with kind eyes and graying hair approached from behind. Her name tag read, Margaret Chen, charge nurse. When she saw my face clearly, she stopped walking abruptly. Her clipboard slipped from her hands, clattering against the floor. "Oh my God," she whispered, staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. "Lily, is it really you?" The name hit me like a physical blow. Here was confirmation from a stranger who recognized me after 10 years, who knew me by a name I'd never heard applied to myself. Margaret's eyes filled with tears as she bent to retrieve her clipboard. "I was working that night, March 15th, 2014. I've never forgotten your face, or how your parents screamed when they found your room empty. They never stopped looking for you, honey. Never stopped believing you were alive somewhere." The hallway spun around me as the implications crashed down. My parents, my real parents, had been searching for a decade while I grew up 20 miles away, with people who'd stolen me from a hospital bed. Margaret guided me to a chair near the nurse's station, her hand steady on my shoulder. "I need to call someone," she said, her voice shaking with excitement and disbelief. "Your mother, Elena Martinez, she gave us a number to call if this day ever came. She never gave up hope." Margaret pulled out her cell phone with hands that trembled as badly as mine. I listened to her make the call, hearing only fragments. "Elena, it's Margaret from St. Catherine's. You need to sit down. She's here, honey. She's alive and she's here." Then Margaret handed me the phone, and a woman's voice broke across the connection, sobbing my name, my real name, over and over. "Lily, mija, is it really you?" The voice was thick with tears and desperate hope. "I've dreamed about this call for 10 years. Are you safe? Are you hurt? Where have you been?" The raw emotion in her voice shattered something inside me, a wall I didn't know I'd built. "I don't know," I whispered into the phone. "I don't know anything anymore. They told me my parents were dead. They told me I was adopted from another country. They've been lying to me my whole life." The woman on the other end made a sound like she'd been struck. Elena Martinez, my mother, was crying so hard she could barely speak. "We looked everywhere. The police, the FBI, private investigators. Your father mortgaged the house 3 times to pay for searches. We never stopped looking. I knew you were alive. I could feel it in my heart." Margaret took the phone back and spoke quietly to Elena, while I sat in the hallway chair, watching nurses walk past like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. My entire identity, my understanding of who I was and where I came from, had shattered in the span of an hour. "She's coming," Margaret said after hanging up. Your mother is driving here right now. Your father, too. He left work the second she called him. They'll be here in an hour. She sat down next to me, her professional composure cracking. Lily, I need to ask. The people who raised you, did they hurt you? Are you safe with them? I thought about David and Carol Thompson, who had given me piano lessons and helped with homework and attended every school play. They seemed like loving parents, but now every kindness felt tainted by the knowledge that they'd built their family on kidnapping and lies. They were good to me, I said slowly, but they lied about everything. My whole life is a lie. The words felt strange in my mouth, like speaking a foreign language. Margaret nodded with understanding that came from years of seeing families destroyed by tragedy. The police need to be involved, she said gently. This is kidnapping, honey. Those people kept you from your real family for 10 years. They need to answer for that. The thought of David and Carol in handcuffs made my stomach turn, despite everything they'd done. Detective Ray Kowalski arrived before my parents, a soft-spoken man in his 50s who'd worked missing persons cases for 2 decades. He listened to my story without interruption, taking notes in a worn leather journal. His questions were gentle but thorough, designed to establish facts without traumatizing me further. Lily, he said, I was one of the investigators on your case. I've carried your photo in my wallet for 10 years, hoping someone would recognize you. This is the best day I've had in my entire career. He showed me the missing person flyer with my 6-year-old face, offering a reward that had grown to $50,000 over the years. The elevator chimed, and Margaret stood up immediately. That's them, she said, her voice tight with emotion. Your parents are here. I watched the elevator doors open, revealing a man and woman in their 40s, both looking like they'd run through traffic to get here. The woman, Elena, had dark hair streaked with premature gray and eyes that matched mine exactly. The man beside her was tall with calloused hands and a face etched by years of worry. When they saw me sitting in the hallway chair, they both stopped moving, as if afraid I might disappear again. Lily? Elena whispered, her voice breaking on my name. Is it really you, Mija? She took a tentative step forward, then another, as if approaching a wild animal that might bolt. When I nodded, she collapsed to her knees in front of my chair and sobbed. Her hands shook as she reached toward my face, stopping just short of touching me. You're so beautiful. You're so grown up. I missed everything. Your first day of school, learning to drive, your quinceañera. I missed it all. The pain in her voice was unbearable. My father, Roberto Martinez, hung back, his eyes never leaving my face. We never stopped looking, he said quietly. Every birthday, every Christmas, every day for 10 years. We knew you were alive somewhere. We could feel it. His voice cracked on the last words. Detective Kowalski gave us privacy while my parents shared photos from their phones, showing me the life I should have lived. Birthday parties with an empty chair marked Lily. Christmas trees with presents still wrapped and waiting. A bedroom kept exactly as I'd left it 10 years ago, frozen in time for a 6-year-old who never came home. We have a younger son now, Elena said hesitantly, as if afraid I might be upset by this news. Diego. He's 8 years old. We told him all about his big sister. Showed him your pictures every year on your birthday. He's been begging us to let him help look for you. The thought of a little brother I'd never met, who'd grown up hearing stories about me, added another layer of complexity to emotions I couldn't process. My real family had continued living, expanding, grieving, while I grew up ignorant of their existence just 20 miles away. Detective Kowalski returned with paperwork and gentle questions about my life with the Thompsons. He needed details for the investigation. Where I lived, went to school, whether I'd ever been taken out of state. Each answer felt like a betrayal of the people who'd raised me, even though they were the ones who'd betrayed me first. We'll need to arrest David and Carol Thompson, Detective Kowalski explained. But first, we need to make sure you're safe. Do you want to go home with your parents tonight, or do you need time to process this? There's no wrong answer, Lily. This is an impossible situation. The question paralyzed me. These people were strangers who shared my DNA and my stolen past. The Thompsons were criminals who'd given me love built on lies. Where did I belong when every foundation of my identity had crumbled in a single afternoon? I need to get my things, I said finally, from the Thompson house. And I need to tell them. I need to confront them about what they did. Elena's face showed panic at the thought of me returning to my kidnappers, but Detective Kowalski nodded with understanding. We'll go with you, he said. This needs to be handled carefully. They might run when they realize you've found out the truth, and we need to arrest them before they can destroy evidence or contact accomplices. The word accomplices sent chills through me. How many people had been involved in stealing me from my hospital bed? The drive to the Thompson house felt surreal, like traveling between 2 different dimensions. Detective Kowalski drove his unmarked car while Elena and Roberto followed in their old sedan. I sat in the passenger seat, staring at suburban houses that had seemed normal this morning, but now felt like movie sets hiding terrible secrets. The Thompson house looked exactly as I'd left it 12 hours ago. Red brick colonial with white shutters, carefully maintained lawn, basketball hoop in the driveway where I'd spent countless hours practicing free throws, but now it felt like a prison disguised as a home. Carol's car was in the driveway, which meant she was home from her job at the accounting firm. David wouldn't be back from his construction site for another hour, giving us time to confront at least one of my kidnappers before backup arrived. Detective Kowalski checked his weapon and radio before we approached the front door. Let me go first, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. If they see police immediately, they might panic. I want to look them in the eyes when they realize I know the truth. Detective Kowalski hesitated, then nodded. My parents stayed by the car, probably afraid to let me out of their sight again. I used my key to open the front door, stepping into the living room that had been my entire world for 10 years. Family photos covered the mantel, pictures of me at school events, vacation trips, Christmas mornings, all of it built on stolen time with someone else's child. "Carol?" I called out, my voice echoing in the quiet house. "I'm home early from work." Footsteps approached from the kitchen, and Carol Thompson appeared in the doorway wearing the floral apron I'd given her for Mother's Day 2 years ago. Her smile faded when she saw my expression. "What's wrong, honey?" she asked, moving toward me with concern that looked genuine. "You look upset. Did something happen at work?" For a moment, I almost wavered. This woman had packed my school lunches and taught me to drive and held me when I cried over broken hearts. But she'd also stolen me from a hospital bed and lied about it every day for a decade. "I saw a news article today," I said quietly, watching her face for reaction, "about a little girl who went missing from St. Catherine's Hospital 10 years ago. Her name was Lily Martinez." Carol's face went completely white. She took a step backward, her hand reaching for the wall to steady herself. "I don't know what you're talking about," she whispered, but her eyes showed recognition and terror. "Honey, you're scaring me. Why would you bring up something like that?" But she knew. I could see in her expression that she knew exactly why I was bringing it up. "The little girl in the photo looked exactly like me," I continued, my voice getting stronger. "Same face, same scar, same birthmark." The article said her real name was Lily Martinez, and her real parents have been searching for her for 10 years. It said she was stolen from her hospital room by someone in scrubs. Carol collapsed into a chair, her face crumbling with guilt and fear. "You have to understand," she said desperately. "We couldn't have children. We tried everything. Fertility treatments, adoption agencies. They all rejected us for reasons we never understood. When the opportunity came to give a child a loving home, you stole me from my real parents," I said, anger finally breaking through the shock. "My mother and father have been searching for me for 10 years. They never gave up hope, and you let them suffer while you played house with their daughter." Carol started crying, but I felt no sympathy for her tears. Detective Kowalski chose that moment to enter through the front door, his badge visible and his hand near his weapon. "Carol Thompson, you're under arrest for kidnapping, child abduction, and conspiracy." Carol's sobs grew louder as he read her rights and applied handcuffs to wrists that had braided my hair for school pictures. David arrived 20 minutes later to find his house surrounded by police cars and his wife being loaded into the back of a patrol vehicle. I watched from the front lawn as Detective Kowalski arrested the man who'd taught me to ride a bicycle and helped with my math homework. David's eyes found mine across the chaos, and I saw the exact moment he realized his carefully constructed lie had finally unraveled. "I'm sorry," he mouthed silently as the handcuffs clicked into place. Whether he was apologizing for getting caught or for stealing 10 years of my life with my real family, I'd never know. Both interpretations felt inadequate for the magnitude of what they'd done to everyone involved. Elena and Roberto stood beside me as we watched the police cars drive away, taking my kidnappers to jail where they belonged. My real parents' presence felt both foreign and familiar, like remembering a song you'd forgotten you knew. Elena took my hand tentatively, and I didn't pull away. "What happens now?" I asked Detective Kowalski, as the crowd of neighbors and reporters began to disperse. The media had somehow gotten wind of the story, turning my suburban street into a circus of cameras and microphones. Someone had leaked that the missing Martinez girl had been found after 10 years. "Now you go home," he said simply. "Your real home, with your real family. The Thompsons will be charged with multiple felonies. They'll likely spend the next decade in prison, maybe longer." Justice felt hollow compared to the 10 years of life that had been stolen from all of us. The drive to the Martinez house took us through neighborhoods I'd passed countless times without knowing I was traveling toward my real family. Elena pointed out landmarks from my early childhood: the park where I'd learned to walk, the grocery store where I'd thrown tantrums in the checkout line, the elementary school I should have attended. Their house was smaller than the Thompsons, a modest ranch with a well-worn driveway and toys scattered across the front yard. "Diego's been waiting inside," Roberto explained as we pulled in. "We told him his big sister was coming home, but we weren't sure he'd believe us until he saw you." The front door opened before we reached it, revealing a small boy with my eyes and my father's jawline. He stared at me for a long moment, then ran forward and wrapped his arms around my waist. "I knew you'd come back," he said fiercely. I never stopped believing. Inside, the house was filled with evidence of my stolen decade. School photos showing an empty space where I should have been. Birthday cakes with my name still written in frosting. A bedroom maintained exactly as I'd left it at age 6, complete with the stuffed rabbit I'd been clutching when I disappeared from the hospital. "We kept everything," Elena explained, watching me touch toys I'd forgotten I owned. "Your clothes, your books, your art projects from school. We couldn't bear to change anything because it felt like giving up hope." The preserved room was both heartbreaking and comforting, proof that I'd been loved and missed every day I was gone. That night, I lay in a bed I didn't remember in a room that was supposedly mine, staring at a ceiling decorated with glow-in-the-dark stars my real parents had placed there when I was 4. Diego had insisted on sleeping on the floor next to my bed, afraid I might disappear again if he wasn't watching. "Tell me about Lily," he whispered in the dark. "The real Lily, before she went away." I realized he wanted to know about me before the kidnapping, but I had no memories to share. The Thompsons had stolen those too, replacing them with lies about overseas adoption and dead parents. "I don't remember," I admitted, "but maybe we can make new memories together." Diego reached up from his sleeping bag and squeezed my hand, and for the first time since seeing that news article, I felt like something good might come from this terrible situation. The trial took 18 months, during which I lived in a strange limbo between two identities. I was legally Lily Martinez, but I'd been Alexandra Thompson for 10 formative years. Therapists helped me process the complex trauma of discovering your entire life was built on lies, while prosecutors built their case against the couple who'd raised me. David and Carol Thompson were eventually convicted on all charges, receiving sentences of 15 and 12 years respectively. During their sentencing, Carol begged for my forgiveness through tears, while David maintained that they'd given me a loving home I wouldn't have had otherwise. Neither response felt adequate for the decade of pain they'd caused my real family. Elena kept a scrapbook during the trial, filling it with newspaper clippings about the case and photos of our slowly rebuilding family. She was determined to document every moment of my return, as if creating physical proof that I was really home again. Roberto taught me to play guitar, the same instrument he'd planned to share with me before I was taken. The media attention was overwhelming initially, with reporters calling me the miracle girl, who'd been found after a decade. But as the news cycle moved on to other tragedies, we were left with the harder work of actually becoming a family again. Some days were beautiful, full of rediscovered connections and shared laughter. Others were painful, marked by grief for all the time we'd lost. Diego became my anchor through it all, never treating me like a stranger or making me feel guilty for the years I'd been gone. He accepted my return with the uncomplicated joy of a child, showing me his school projects and teaching me the video games I'd missed while living with the Thompsons. Through him, I learned to be Lily Martinez again. 2 years after that news article changed everything, I stood in the same hospital room where I'd been taken, now volunteering with families of missing children. Elena worked beside me, channeling her decade of searching into helping others navigate the nightmare she'd survived. We couldn't change the past, but we could use our story to bring other families home. The boy who approached me that Thursday afternoon had the same desperate hope in his eyes that my parents had carried for 10 years. "My sister's been missing for 6 months," he said quietly. "Everyone says she's probably dead, but I know she's alive somewhere. I can feel it." I squeezed his hand and told him what Elena had taught me. Sometimes the impossible happens, sometimes miracles are real, and sometimes a single news article can bring the dead back to life.